guys, so today is going to be my labor and delivery story, and as you can see, no Maddie. She is taking a nap with her daddy in our bedroom. I just filmed a baby haul full of clothes for her and Emmy and little essentials and things like that, so I'll be uploading that after this story, after this video. But I did want to go ahead and just share with you guys my labor and delivery story because I feel like I have had an overwhelming amount of questions about it, and I just figured it would be easier just to answer everything at once. Maddie is almost 1 month. She'll be 1 month on Friday. She was born October 1st. If you guys saw my Meet Madeline Grace video on my beauty channel, then you have already heard a lot of this stuff. Not all of it, but like a little bit of her information and stuff like that. So this is going to be leading up to why and how I had her on October 1st when my due date wasn't until October 13th. So if you're interested in my labor and delivery story, then just stay tuned. So you're probably wondering why I have my phone. It's because it has been almost a month since I had her, and I wanted to make sure that I could remember everything up until this point, because you know, your memory tends to fade from time to time. I actually still can remember a bunch of stuff that has already happened, but it definitely is starting to go by the wayside the older that she becomes. So I did take quite a bit of notes on my phone while I was in labor, just for you guys and for myself too, because I wanted to be able to watch this video later on in life if I wanted to look back on her labor. Unfortunately, the hospital that we delivered at does not allow video cameras. They allow still photography as much as you want, but not video cameras or recording of any kind, which would have been really nice for us. I had a short clip of before and after in my Meet Madeline video on my beauty channel, but not during labor, which I would have loved, because I would have loved to film even a C-section, but unfortunately that wasn't the case. So anywho, let's go ahead and jump into the story. So on let's see, September 30th, you guys last left, I filmed a pregnancy update vlog when I was 38 weeks 1 day, which was the day before I was induced, and that was, everything was fine up until then. I had told you guys I had a doctor's appointment. I was kind of concerned about my blood pressure and the weight gain and stuff like that. So I went in for my doctor's appointment September 30th. It was at 9:30 in the morning. I had actually lost 3.5 pounds, which I wasn't sure why, because I hadn't been throwing up or anything. It was just I had lost 3.5 pounds. So I had a total weight gain my entire pregnancy of 23 pounds. Maddie was, the doctor wanted to take another sonogram of her ultrasound because she was just really big. Like, I was measuring way off the charts. So in the sonogram, the sonographer couldn't even tell how big she was because she was so big. Like, every time she tried to do her measurements, she's like, I don't even have anything on the chart to measure her. She's so large. And I'm like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? I'm gonna have like a 12-pound baby. What the heck? So she estimated, they actually estimated that she was about 8 pounds, but the sonographer was like, that can't be right. She's like, because I'm lowering her stats just to make her 8 pounds. She's like, so I'm thinking she's 8.5 to 9 pounds. So after we had the ultrasound, we went back to the doctor's office, and my OB was like, yeah, she's really large. Like, I feel like I don't want to wait any longer, because the longer we wait, the more likely you are to have a C-section, because she's just going to be too large for you to push her out. And I'm like, okay. So she said, I want to induce you tonight. And of course I was completely thrown off. I started crying, and it makes me cry just thinking about it. I was just completely thrown off because, you know, I went to the doctor's appointment. Of course I had my hospital bag ready and everything just in case. I was already 38 weeks, so it's not like I was, you know, 35 weeks or 34 weeks and she was trying to tell me to go to the hospital. So we were prepared. It's just, it was one of those things that it didn't feel real. I knew I was pregnant. Can you hear Maddie crying? Oh, I hope Daddy's okay. I was prepared to have her, but I guess I felt like she never was going to come out. I don't know. It was the weirdest feeling. So I was like, okay, you know, we have to do what we have to do. So she told me to come back to the doctor tonight. I had to be there by 4:30, which we were late. And she would give me Cervidil, which is a medication that they put up by your cervix to soften your cervix and help you dilate a little bit, and it kind of looks like a tampon. And then I would get Pitocin the next morning. So we immediately went home, grabbed our bags, we cleaned up the house because we knew we were going to be in the hospital for a few days, made arrangements for Emmy because I wasn't going to get her that night, and everything was done. So we were back at the hospital. We actually had to be there at 5:30. I said 4:30, but I meant 5:30. And we didn't even get home till noon. So by the time I had taken a quick shower, like everything, made sure everything was, you know, prepped and clean, shaven and all that kind of stuff. And we were just really excited. And we were on our way to the hospital. We didn't get there till almost 6. So we were running a little bit late. That's because of my nerves. I was admitted at 6:30 p.m. on 9:30, which was that Monday. And I had already been dilated 1 centimeter. And that was as of my doctor's appointment, and then they checked me when I got there just to see if I was dilated. So I was dilated 1 centimeter, which was a little bit of progress. My cervix was kind of soft, but not really. So they went ahead and gave me the Cervidil, which is a medication I was talking about, at 7:55 p.m. And once they gave it to me, she actually said I was having contractions. You know, because when you go to the hospital, when you get admitted, they put a heart monitor for the baby and then a contraction monitor on you on your uterus. And then it reads it on the machine so that they can see what the baby's heart rate is and what your contractions look like. So they were reading me the entire time, and I didn't feel any contractions. Like, I hadn't felt Braxton Hicks or anything, nothing. I didn't even know what a contraction was supposed to feel like. I had an idea, but not really. So she was actually like, oh, you're having contractions. And I'm like, really? I had no idea. She's like, okay, you're having one right now. Do you feel like something is kind of pinching you on the inside? I'm like, hey, you know, it kind of does. It kind of feels like she's moving her head around or something, or her body. She's like rubbing up against my tummy. She's like, yeah, that's a contraction. I'm like, oh, I thought it was her moving the entire time. I had no idea, and I had actually been feeling those contractions for almost a week, and I had no clue. So that was good to know. It felt like I said, her head was kind of pushing up, like almost like she was going like this to my insides. So I was having those contractions like every 4 to 5 minutes. They weren't painful. They were very tolerable. I really didn't have any reaction to them. They were lasting for about a minute. It was hard to sleep that night because the Cervidil, it looks like a tampon. It's the weirdest thing. I don't wear tampons, so it was very uncomfortable for it to be put in. You know, not unbearable, but definitely uncomfortable. They slip it in up to your uterus pretty high up there, you know, where a tampon would go, and that's exactly what it looks like. It looks like a little cotton tip almost. It has medication on the end that releases once they put it inside of you, and it's long acting. So you put it in the night before, and then you wear it for like almost 12 hours, and it's supposed to, like I said, help your cervix dilate, or your cervix soften and dilate. And so yeah, that's what happened. It was very uncomfortable because I have a hard time sleeping on my back, especially when I was pregnant. I think I should go check on her. Let me see. Okay, he's fine. I was just getting a little worried there. I forgot where I left off. I think I was talking about sleeping. So it was a little difficult to sleep because the monitors, I had to lay flat, almost flat on my back for the monitors to stay still. And it just was so uncomfortable. I couldn't breathe. They were like, you can't get up with the Cervidil. You have to kind of stay where you're at. I really couldn't turn side to side because the monitor wouldn't pick up her heartbeat. So it was super uncomfortable. And I did start to get pretty, not heavy contractions, but they hurt definitely a lot worse than the mild ones. So I did have a hard time sleeping. If you ever have to have Cervidil, you kind of understand. And then, you know, it makes you feel kind of gunky down there. It was just a little hard to sleep. So now we are to the next day, which is October 1st. They took out the Cervidil at 5 a.m. They didn't check for dilation right away. They wanted to kind of let it sit there. I finally got to go to the bathroom and everything because they told me if I had gotten up to go to the bathroom or anything, I could potentially drop the Cervidil in the toilet. So I finally got to go to the bathroom. At 6:45 they started the Pitocin. They broke my water. Once they had started the Pitocin on a low dose, I think I was at 18, they wanted to kind of slowly start my labor because they weren't sure how much I had dilated from the Cervidil. So they ended up breaking my water at 8:05 a.m. They put in an internal monitor at that point, which I was so grateful for. First off, when they break your water, artificially especially, I'm not sure what it feels like regularly. I can only imagine it feels the same way. It literally felt like I was peeing my pants. It was just a humongous gush of water, and it kept coming, and it kept coming, and it kept coming, because at another doctor's appointment, the sonographer had told me I had a lot of fluid, and so it just kept coming and kept coming. I literally was like, oh my gosh, is this seriously still coming? I can't imagine there's any more in there. So they did that. Once they did that, they put the internal monitor in, which was very uncomfortable. I literally was crying in pain. It was very, very uncomfortable. I guess because I was kind of swollen in that area, you know, from all the poking and prodding, and I just was uncomfortable already because I was having contractions. When my doctor went to go put the internal monitor in, I was like, oh my god, what are you doing to me? Like, it hurt so bad. And at that point, I was like, I'm never going to be able to have this baby naturally. I'm going to have an epidural, because I literally was crying in agony. It hurt so, so bad. But once it was in, it was fine. It was a little uncomfortable because there was a wire hanging out of you, but other than that, it was perfectly fine, and it was much more comfortable for me because I could finally turn on my side. I didn't have to be flat on my back, which was great. So they did that at 8:05 a.m. I started to have majorly strong contractions after they broke my water. But when they finally checked me for dilation, I was only 2 centimeters, and I was 60% effaced and a -3 station. Okay, the station is where the baby's head is. So when the baby is at a 0, it goes -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, or I think it goes to 2. But anyway, once they get to a 0, it means that their head is lined with your pelvis. She was at a -3, so she was like way up in my uterus still. She wasn't even in the birth canal, which was very disappointing. But they did warn me that that could happen. Pitocin was just supposed to get everything going, so I was like, okay, perfectly fine. At this point, my contractions were like 2 to 3 minutes apart, and they were lasting like a minute and a half. They were moderate. They were very painful. I tried to stick it out as long as I could, but they were so painful. And now I realize now after birth that the reason my contractions were so painful was because my uterus was working overtime to try and get her to descend, and she wasn't descending. Like, that's why I had to have a C-section. She just wasn't coming down. So it's like my body was progressing, the contractions were getting stronger as if I was going to deliver, but the rest of my body wasn't cooperating, so it was very painful. I was having, the doctor said my contractions were so hard that I was having them as if someone who is 7 and 8 centimeters dilated, and I was only 2 centimeters dilated. I was in severe pain. So anywho, I requested an epidural. I tried really hard, and I was like, you know what, I'm so uncomfortable. I'm only 2 centimeters dilated, and I'm already having contractions this hard, and I'm not going to make it. So I actually was 4 centimeters dilated, but I requested my epidural at 10:30. I actually did not get it until noon. And the epidural was definitely something that I had the entire time planned on getting. I did tell myself, though, that if I could stand the pain, I would try and do it naturally, but I would have ended up having to have an epidural anyway because I had a C-section. So it wasn't even, I didn't even think twice about it when I got it because I was in such pain. So anywho, and it was weird. It didn't hurt. You could definitely feel a pinch when they were numbing the area, and I could feel the catheter kind of going in. It felt weird, like a weird sensation, but it wasn't painful. And then once they hit where they were supposed to be, my legs were, jerking, my muscles had reactions and stuff like that. Afterwards, it was the epidural from hell, let me tell you. It was such a tweak epidural because it did not work the way it was supposed to. But the actual initial experience wasn't bad. So after I got the epidural at noon, they checked me again, and I was only 3 centimeters dilated. So they called the doctor, and the doctor said, go ahead and increase the Pitocin. I think they increased it to 28 or 30, which was like the highest it could go. No, maybe it was 40. I don't really remember, but it was like the highest it could go. And then at 3 o'clock, which was 2.5 hours later, they checked me, and I was 3 to 4 centimeters dilated. So the nurse did tell me, she gave me a kind of a heads up before my doctor came there. She was like, you're progressing pretty slowly. Like, there's really no reason why you shouldn't have had this baby by now, or you shouldn't be at like 8 centimeters. And so she did say, she's like, the doctor's going to come in and probably recommend a C-section just because you're progressing really slowly and we want to keep baby's health in mind and stuff like that. So I immediately started to bawl because I was so upset. I had already endured so much pain, tried to make it through. It was already a horrible experience because, like I said, the epidural was just not working. It kind of numbed me. I could definitely feel it immediately once they put it in at noon. For like the first hour and a half, it was working, and I was like, oh, this is great, I can sleep. And then I woke up and all of a sudden it stopped working, and the nurse kept saying, press the button, and so I'm like pressing that button. It's a controlled pain medicine, so it's not like they let you have as much as you want, but I was pressing it as much as I could and it just wasn't working. I could tell that it took a little bit of the edge off because they weren't as severe as they were before the epidural, but they still hurt like crap. And from what I've heard from every single one of my friends, because every single one of them have had epidurals, what I've seen on YouTube, no one has felt anything. Like, when they get an epidural, they could feel like the pressure of the uterus contracting, but they couldn't actually feel pain. And I was still in pain, which was, I kept thinking, oh my God, like the whole point of an epidural was to be able to have a nice, relaxing delivery, be able to take a nap before, and I was still doubling over in pain. So it was not the best situation I've ever been in, but it was okay. So after the nurse had talked to me at 3 o'clock, the doctor was going to come after she got off her day shift around 6 to check again, and if I wasn't dilated, then she said she would probably recommend a C-section. So my OB ended up coming about 6:45, and right before that, Andres had, because I was so worried, I kept counting down the clock, and I'm like, please just let me be like 5 or 6 centimeters when she gets here, so maybe she'll be like, okay, now you're progressing, you can actually try and do it vaginally. I was so worried about having a C-section. You guys know that. I had been talking about it my whole, like, every single pregnancy vlog that I did. I was so worried and tried to do everything I could to prevent having a C-section. So needless to say, she came in at 6:45. Oh, right before that, Andres was massaging my stomach because I had literally had such horrible contractions. It was horrible. He was massaging my stomach to try and kind of relieve them a little bit. That's usually what I do when I have menstrual cramps, is massage my tummy. I use heat, stuff like that, and it helps it. So he was massaging it, and right about an hour and a half before the doctor ended up coming in, my contractions felt different. Like, they felt like they moved, which was weird. I was feeling the contractions up in my uterus, like right below my belly button, the entire day and night before. But then all of a sudden, they started to feel like they were going down, like in my vaginal region. And so I was like, oh my God, like, it was just immediately from one contraction to the next. I'm like, it feels different. I don't know how to describe it. It's the same kind of pain, but it's lower. So I was like, maybe she's starting to descend, and that's why I can feel it. Maybe lower in the birth canal, it's starting to contract, like my uterus is contracting lower. I don't know, it was so weird. Is that supposed to happen when you have when you have a vaginal delivery? Does your contractions start to descend with the baby? That's how it felt to me. So I got a little excited because I was like, maybe, and they started to get stronger and stronger, and they hurt like hell, don't get me wrong, but they started to get stronger. So I was like, yes, I had a little glimmer of hope. Maybe I'll be able to have a vaginal delivery. So when the doctor ended up coming in, it was 6:45, and I still hadn't dilated past 5 centimeters. She was like, I wouldn't even call you 5 centimeters. You're like 4.5. And I'm like, oh my God, are you serious? That means I had only gone up another half a centimeter or a centimeter in the last like 4 or 5 hours. She just said, you have to have a C-section. She's like, I don't want to risk how big she is. She's like, when I put my fingers in there to check your dilation, I can still kind of bounce her head in your uterus, which means she wasn't in position. And that's pretty much what was the determining factor for her to give me a C-section. She's like, because you're already almost 5 centimeters dilated, and her head has not descended at all. And she's like, that's not good because I don't want you to dilate more. You run the risk of infection, of fever for the baby, fever for you. She's like, I don't want to run that risk if her head's not going to descend because she's not in position. So of course I'm just like hysterical, and my doctor knew that I didn't want a C-section, so she really tried to prevent it at all costs. I felt guilty because I was like, what if, makes me cry just thinking about it, what if I had waited a couple of weeks, you know, maybe I could have pushed her out and maybe she would have been ready. What if I had let her come on her own? Maybe that would have been better. I felt an emotion of guilt. And of course, besides feeling guilty about Maddie, I was feeling sorry for myself because I knew it was going to be a harder recovery. I knew it was going to be worse. I have really low tolerance for pain medication, and I was afraid I was going to be sick. It was just like all around torture. It was horrible. At least if I had known going in I was going to have a C-section, I would have had time to prepare, but it was like agonizing to have to just immediately go in. I mean, she came in at 6:45 to tell me that we needed to have a C-section. They prepped me immediately. It was like the anesthesiologist came in, I already had the epidural, so he pushed some more medication, and that completely numbed me. It was the weirdest feeling. I could not feel my bottom half. It was very frightening, actually, because you want to make sure that you can feel coming out of it, and you're conscious, so it's not like it's just a regular surgery where you don't remember anything. I can remember the whole thing. Well, they immediately prepped the OR. They took me back within minutes, and once they got everything prepped and they took me back, I told the doctor, I was like, you know me, like I need to make sure that I can see this. So the C-section, you know, normally they have the drape to contain the sterile area. They put a mirror up above it so that I could watch the whole thing. I'm trying to keep it together, I'm sorry. It just makes me cry because I just think I wanted to watch her birth so bad, and I got to. So anywho, enough with the waterworks. I'm going to try and keep it together. But anyway, so I got to watch her birth. Andres was in there with me. My mom didn't get to go, which was the only thing I was kind of bummed about because she was going to be there if I had had a vaginal birth. But she was waiting in the room for us. And yeah, they gave me the nausea medication and everything, and what sucked about it was I of course didn't tolerate it, which I warned them I wouldn't because I have not tolerated it in the past. And I was throwing up while I was on the operating table, which they were, of course, I'm sure they deal with all kinds of stuff, so they were super sweet about it. They you know, wiped me up and made sure I had a basin to vomit in, and that was that. I threw up like 5 or 6 times, 2 different times, so it was kind of torturous because I couldn't move. I was kind of just leaning my head over. That was kind of sucky, but everything went super smooth. It was a definitely weird experience. I'm going to put pictures here how I'm talking about it. The doctors, they cut right above your pubic area in the fold of the bottom of your stomach in your pubic area, so the scar is very not visible now. They burn your flesh, which is weird. They use a laser, at least my hospital used a laser to cut everything open, not a scalpel. And so that I could smell my flesh burning. That was kind of weird. I could feel a little bit of pressure, but not a lot. A lot of people say when you have a C-section, you of course can't feel pain, but you could feel a lot of pressure of them pulling the baby out and stuff. I could see it because I could look in the mirror up above and see everything. I could even see my insides, which was kind of cool, for me at least. Probably not for some of you. But that was really cool, but I couldn't feel anything. So that was a really nice experience because it was essentially pain-free, which was great initially. You know, of course afterwards it was not pain-free, but initially that was great. So when they pulled her out, the first words out of the doctor's mouth that I could hear, "She's a big girl," and I could hear my doctor telling the on-call doctor she would have never descended. I was in labor, true labor, or almost true labor for 14 plus hours, and if you count the whole night before, it was technically like 26 hours. So it was pretty gruesome. She should have descended by then, and she didn't. And the doctors did say she would have never descended. She was in the wrong position. I would have had to have had a C-section unless maybe more time had gone by and she had descended, then it just wouldn't have happened. So we just didn't prolong the inevitable is what the case was. and they pulled her out. I heard her crying and I just started bawling. I was so thrilled. She was perfect. She was absolutely beautiful. I love everything about her. All I remember hearing myself say is, she's perfect, and I was just crying, and I was out of it. They had drugged me so much, but Andres brought her to me. I gave her a kiss. It was just the sweetest moment. He was crying. It was all that I could ask for, and then some. So she was born at 7:42 p.m. so that just shows you how quickly they had moved from the time we were in the room till the time that she was born. She was 8 pounds 8 ounces and 20 inches long, and yeah, she was born on October 1st, and I think 8 pounds 8 ounces is not small by any means, but it's not as big as we were all anticipating her to be. Technically, it's about 8.5 pounds. So we all thought she was going to be at least 9 plus. I was 9'5.5". I thought she was at least going to be my size or a little bit bigger, but 8 pounds 8 ounces really isn't that big. Now, if I had let her go to 40 weeks, maybe she would have been 9 pounds, but 8 pounds 8 ounces, so that was a perfect size. She was perfect in every single way. She was very content. She didn't cry after the initial scream. She just barely cried when she got her vitamin K shot. She was a trooper, I have to say. I had a very difficult time right after my C-section. I had the chills really bad. Sorry, I keep getting text messages and stuff. I had the chills really bad. They thought I was going to have a fever, or I was starting to get a fever. I was shaking. I mean, so like literally like convulsing almost. It was very strange, and it was just my body's reaction to the surgery, to losing her. It was crazy, and it just, I mean, I was really out of it. Like, that's a whole reason why I didn't really want a C-section, because I was just really out of it afterwards. But once I saw her, none of it mattered. It didn't even matter. I didn't care how I got her, how she came into this world. She came, and that was the only thing that mattered at that point. So afterwards, you know, everyone came to visit. We were fine. I'm going to do a whole postpartum video talking about how I recovered from my C-section and how breastfeeding went and stuff like that. But afterwards, we had our room. I knew we were going to be there for 4 days afterwards, which was gruesome. I'm glad I overpacked. That was that. She was ours. I couldn't believe it. And now she's 4 weeks and a few days, almost 1 month old. I cannot believe how quickly time has flown by. She is still perfect. She has a little attitude of her own, but she is absolutely beautiful. Every time I look at her, in fact, even when we came home from the hospital, I'm just like, oh my god, you came out of me. It's the weirdest thing when I look back at my pregnancy vlogs, and I can remember feeling her moving when I was talking to you guys and stuff like that. It's just crazy how quickly your life can change. And yeah, so that was my labor and delivery story. If you guys have a labor and delivery story, kind of leave it in the comments below or post a video response. I love watching these types of videos because I think it's so sweet to see how a mom views herself after labor and delivery and how you felt about it prior to, because I know the feelings that I had and then how I feel about it now. Like a C-section, I was devastated. I could not even fathom the thought of it prior to having one, and now it's the only thing I know. So it's my new normal, because when I go to have another baby, I'm going to have another C-section. So yeah, that's that. I hope that you guys enjoyed my story. I know it was super long, but I did want to just show you guys, or tell you guys all about my experience. And like I said, I'm going to do a postpartum video probably around 6 weeks, just telling you guys how breastfeeding is going and how it went in the beginning, and then like I said, how I'm recovering and how I recovered in the beginning. If you guys want to see any other types of videos regarding Maddie or baby stuff on this channel, definitely leave it in the comments down below. Let me know what you guys think, and yeah, I hope that you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you in my next video. Bye! See, my name is Madeline. Say hello. Say hi, everybody. She has a full belly. She just ate. Say hello. We're right in front of a window. She probably is like, why is it so bright in here? Say hi, everybody. I'm so happy to meet you.